Commander Vrek sat in his office later that evening. The station was quiet again. Too quiet. He stared at the incident report on his screen. Then he stared some more. Then he leaned back in his chair and sighed. Because there was absolutely no way to make this report sound normal, he began typing. Incident summary. Security team responded to unauthorized modifications in engineering bay 12. Subject identified as human engineer Maya Torres. Initial attempt to detain subject interrupted by beverage. Distribution. Vrex stopped typing that he rubbed his temples. Then continued. Additional notes. Subject offered coffee to arresting officers. Point 3 officers accepted. Point 1 officer spilled coffee during power surge event. He paused again. He could already imagine a reaction when this report reached station command. Still, facts were facts. He kept typing. Power surge caused by system feedback loop during demonstration of power grid modifications. Result: minor instability event and catastrophic coffee spillage. That he looked down at the puddle still visible on the engineering bay camera feed. Then he typed the final line. That subject's modifications prevented station-wide systems failure projected within 8 to 12 days. That he stared at the screen for a long time. Then he hit send. Within 48 hours, the report became the most downloaded document in Sentinel Station Kappa history. Across the station, engineers were already studying Maya's work. Point 3 independent engineering teams spent 2 full days analyzing the new power grid. They expected to find mistakes, unsafe shortcuts, human recklessness. Instead, they found something else, something unexpected. The modifications were brilliant. The new power routing system was faster, more stable, and far more efficient than the original design. Point 1 senior engineer finally said the thing everyone was thinking. I hate that this works. Another engineer nodded slowly. Not only does it work, he pointed at the display. It's better than what we would have designed. Someone else added quietly. And she built it in 1 afternoon. Meanwhile, the official response arrived. Human engineer Maya Torres received a formal reprimand placed in her personnel file. The charges included violation of station protocols, unauthorized system access, failure to follow proper requisition procedures. When Maya read the notice, she shrugged. Worth it. The unofficial response was much different. Chief Engineer Brandt invited her to the station bar. He bought her 3 drinks, then leaned across the table. So, hypothetically speaking, he slid a data pad toward her. Would you mind looking at the environmental recycling system? Maya looked at the screen. It's been making weird noises for about a year, Braun admitted. Maya took a sip of her drink. Sure. She smiled. But only if you buy the next round. Within a month, her invention spread across the entire station. The system she called an efficiency booster became official equipment. Of course, they changed the name. The official term became Dynamic Load Optimization Module. The IT sounded much more professional, and conveniently avoided mentioning that it had been invented by a human engineer using spare parts and pure stubbornness. Station Administrator Kell also issued a new directive. All human engineering suggestions must be reviewed within 72 hours. Previously, those same requests had been automatically sent to extended committee review. Kell never publicly admitted why the rule changed, but everyone knew. 3 weeks after the incident, 4 more human engineers arrived at the station. Commander Vrex saw them step off the transport shuttle. He immediately filed a transfer request. The request was denied. That he filed another one the next day. Denied again. His second-in-command, Officer Thrall, had started keeping a coffee machine in the security office. Officially, it was for long shifts. Unofficially, Thrall had become completely addicted to the drink. Norvik started something called a coffee club. They met twice a week. Membership grew quickly. Even some of the station's senior officers began attending. Commander Vrex refused to join at least officially. Unofficially, he had started drinking coffee every morning. He hated how much he liked it. Meanwhile, Maya kept doing what she always did, fixing things, improving systems, and occasionally breaking several protocols along the way. She even started teaching an unofficial class. The subject was called Human Engineering Philosophy. Her first lesson was simple. If it's broken, fix it. If it's not broken, improve it. And if someone tells you something is impossible, she grinned. That just means nobody has tried hard enough yet. From his office window, Commander Vrex watched her walk past the corridor one afternoon. Coffee mug in one hand, a wrench in the other. She was talking excitedly with two Centaur mechanics. They looked like students listening to a master. Vrex sighed. Maybe she really was teaching them the secrets of the universe. He opened the transfer request form again. Sent at point 2 minutes later, denied. Again. Vrex closed the screen, then stood up slowly. There was only one thing left to do. He walked to the security break room and poured himself a cup of coffee. He hated it. He really did. But unfortunately, it was excellent. The humming grew louder. Not just louder, angrier. The entire engineering bay vibrated like a giant machine waking up. Lights flickered across the ceiling. The holographic display pulsed with waves of energy moving through the station's power grid. Commander Vrex felt the vibration through his boots. The air smelled like hot metal. And suddenly he had a terrible feeling. This was exactly how disaster started. The human engineer leaned closer to the panel. "Okay," she said slowly. "That definitely wasn't supposed to happen." Commander Vrex pointed at the glowing display. "What do you mean wasn't supposed to happen?" The human began typing rapidly. "Relax. I see the issue." Several warning indicators turned bright orange. Point 1 junction point flared white. Another began blinking rapidly. "Okay," she said again. "Small problem." "Define small," Norvik said nervously. The human scratched the back of her head. "So, when I opened the system display," she tapped another key. It accidentally triggered a feedback loop in the buffer sequence. The humming increased. The lights dimmed, then flickered again. Commander Vrex slowly backed toward the door. "A feedback loop?" "Yeah," she said, "but it's fine. Totally fine." She kept typing. "I just need to resequence the load balancer." The alarm started. A sharp electronic siren echoed through the corridor outside. A calm, automated voice followed. "Station alert. Power fluctuation detected in Section 7. Engineering teams respond immediately." Jessen swallowed. "That doesn't sound good." "Nope," Norvik agreed. Commander Vrex turned to his guards. Everyone remained calm. Historically, this phrase had never helped anyone remain calm. The human continued typing faster. "I just need to reinitialize the distribution matrix." On the display, another junction node began glowing. Then another. The power lines on the hologram pulsed like a heartbeat. Bright energy surges moved through the station's grid. Thrall stared at the screen. "Are those supposed to glow like that?" The human hesitated. "That depends." "On what?" Plex asked. "On whether we like our power grids slightly unstable." Commander Vrex felt something inside his brain snap. "We are evacuating." "No," the human said immediately. "I'm fixing it." She jumped onto the workbench. Tools clattered to the floor. After a moment, she emerged holding something strange. It looked like a tablet computer taped to a power drill with electrical tape. Thrall stared at it. "What is that?" "Emergency override controller," the human said proudly. Jessen leaned closer. "That's a tablet attached to a drill." "Same thing," she said. Commander Vrex rubbed his temples. "Please tell me you are not about to use that." She pointed the device at a wall control panel. "I just need to manually reset the primary node." "Do not do that," Vrex shouted. She pressed the drill trigger. The drill screamed. Sparks exploded from the panel. The humming in the room reached a painful pitch. Everyone covered their ears. The lights flashed. The alarm screamed. Energy surged across the holographic display like a storm. For one terrifying moment, Commander Vrex was absolutely certain the station was about to explode. Then suddenly, silence. The humming stopped. The lights stabilized. The alarms cut off mid-sound. The holographic display turned calm blue, and green lines flowed smoothly through the power grid. Perfect balance. Perfect efficiency. The human engineer stood there holding her strange drill device. Her hair was slightly burned. Her uniform sleeve was singed, but she was smiling. "See," she said cheerfully, "totally under control." The security team stared at her. N01 spoke. Norvik slowly looked down. His coffee mug slipped from his hand. Tea hit the floor and shattered. Brown liquid spread across the deck plating. Plex looked devastated. "My coffee." "Forget the coffee," Commander Vrex said weakly. He looked at the human, then at the panel, then at the now perfectly stable power grid display, then back at the human. You are under arrest. The human nodded. Yeah, that's fair. Before anyone could say anything else, the engineering bay doors burst open. Station Administrator Kell rushed inside. He looked furious, out of breath, and very ready to yell. I have alarms across 3 sections, he shouted. Power surges. Emergency alerts. Engineering teams preparing evacuation. He looked around the room. 0.5 security officers at a puddle of spilled coffee. 0.1 human engineer holding a tablet taped to a drill, and the smell of fresh coffee in the air. Kell blinked. Report. Every guard slowly pointed at the human. She waved. Hi, Administrator Kell. She glanced at the coffee puddle. Oh, wow. Norvik dropped his. She looked disappointed. That's a tragic waste of caffeine. Kell's scales turned purple. You, he shouted. You are the human engineer who has been filing modification requests for 3 weeks. That's me, she said cheerfully. And you are the administrator who rejected them for 3 weeks. Kell's eye twitched. You went around proper channels. The human smile faded slightly. Proper channels were taking too long. She pulled up a new holographic display. A graph appeared. Power readings, degradation curves, system stress indicators. Your power grid was about 15 minutes away from catastrophic failure, she said calmly. The room went silent. Kell stepped closer. What? The human zoomed in on the graph. This junction has been failing for months. Every spike showed another power surge, another near failure. Every flicker, every strange hum, every power fluctuation. She crossed her arms. That was the system trying not to collapse. She looked directly at the administrator. You were sitting on a ticking time bomb. Commander Vrex slowly looked at the data, then at the human, then back at the data, and suddenly he had a new, much more terrifying realization. The human might not be the problem. The human might have just saved the station. The room was completely silent. Station Administrator Kell stared at the holographic display floating above the control panel. Lines of data scrolled across the screen. Power flow, energy loss, system stress levels, and a long red line showing the slow decline of the station's primary power junction. Kell leaned closer. Is this data accurate? He asked quietly. The human engineer nodded. I pulled it straight from your monitoring systems. She zoomed in on the graph. See this curve? The line slowly dropped over several months. That's the primary junction degrading. She tapped the screen again. Every time the lights flickered, that was this junction struggling. Another graph appeared. Power spikes, fluctuations, stress warnings, and every time someone filed a maintenance report, she pulled up a list. It got pushed through the approval system. Commander Vrex looked at the list. The dates stretched back months. Norvik spoke first. Sir, I filed a report about power fluctuations last month. Jessen nodded. Mine was 3 months ago. Plex raised a hand. The lights in my quarters flicker every night at 2,200 hours. Administrator Kell's scales slowly shifted color, from purple anger to pale concern. The human engineer crossed her arms. You see the problem now? She zoomed in again. If this junction had failed completely, the hologram highlighted 40% of the station. Life support, environmental control, gravity systems. Those systems would shut down instantly. Thrall's voice was quiet. 40% of the station would lose gravity and air at the same time. Jessen swallowed. That would be chaos. Injuries, Norvik added, possibly deaths. And lawsuits, the human said. She looked directly at the administrator. So yes, I broke some rules. I bypassed protocols. I didn't wait for 17 levels of approval. Her voice stayed calm, but I fixed the problem. She gestured at the display. And now your station isn't about to collapse. The room stayed quiet. Commander Vrex looked at the power grid display. Smooth energy flow, stable systems, 94% efficiency. He slowly turned toward Administrator Kell. Kell stared at the data for a long moment. Then he looked at Vrex. Did you offer this woman coffee before attempting to arrest her? Vrex blinked. Sir, she offered us coffee. Kell sighed heavily. Of course she did. The human raised her mug. Anyone want another cup? No one answered. After a long pause, Kel looked back at the display, then at Maya. You were saying the station would have failed within days? She shook her head. 8 to 12 days. She pointed at another projection. Maybe less if the power spikes kept increasing. Kel took a slow breath. Then he turned toward the security team. Stand down. Commander Vrex lowered his shock baton. Sir? Kel rubbed his forehead. We are not arresting the person who just prevented a station-wide disaster. Maya smiled. Good call. Then she looked around the room. So, about that coffee? Norvik cautiously raised his hand. I would like another cup. Vrex stared at his team in disbelief. You are all supposed to be security officers. Plex shrugged. It's really good coffee. Thrall stepped forward. Sir, technically the situation is resolved. Vrex groaned quietly. Maya walked back to her strange coffee machine. Steam rose again. You know, she said casually while pouring another cup. This whole thing could have been avoided if someone had approved my modification requests. Kel sighed. I receive hundreds of requests every week. Yeah, Maya said, but most of them aren't about preventing catastrophic life support failure. Kel had no response to that. The engineering bay remained quiet except for the sound of coffee pouring. Finally, Kel spoke again. Commander Vrex. Yes, sir. File an incident report. Vrex nodded tiredly. I already know how this report is going to read. Kel raised an eyebrow. Do you? Vrex looked at Maya, then at the broken coffee mug on the floor, then at the drill with the tablet taped to it. Yes, he said slowly. This will be the strangest report I have ever written. Maya lifted her mug in a cheerful salute. Welcome to human engineering. Commander Vrex stared at the incident report on his datapad. Then he stared at it again, and then again, because surely the universe was not about to ruin his perfectly boring Tuesday afternoon with this nonsense. The glowing words on the screen looked almost mocking. Unauthorized power grid modifications. Section 7. Engineering Bay 12. Suspect. Human female. Vrex sighed deeply. Of course. It was a human. He had been the security commander of Sentinel Station Kappa for 8 full cycles. And during those 8 cycles, he had dealt with exactly 0 humans. He preferred it that way. Humans, from what he understood, were like brightly colored tropical birds, loud, unpredictable, interesting to observe from a distance, but probably capable of biting your finger off if you got too close. That he had done his preparation. He had read all 17 volumes of the Human Behavioral Interaction Manual. He had completed the required sensitivity training seminars. He had even practiced pronouncing human names in front of a mirror. Names like Jessica, Michael, and Maya. Ridiculous sounds for such a chaotic species. And now, only 3 weeks after a human engineering team arrived on the station, he was already holding an incident report. He slowly lifted his eyes from the datapad and looked at his second-in-command. Officer Thrall stood across the desk. The officer looked like someone who had just stepped in something unpleasant. Vrex already knew the answer would not make him happy, but he asked anyway. How bad is it? Thrall shifted uncomfortably. Sir, the human bypassed for safety protocols. Vrex blinked. She rerouted power conduits through the waste recycling system. Vrex blinked again, and she installed something she calls an efficiency booster into the primary power distribution node. Thrall's mandibles clicked nervously. The node that feeds life support to 40% of the station. Vrex slowly closed all 3 of his eyes. Life support? He asked quietly. Yes, sir. 40%? Yes, sir. And she boosted it. According to the logs? Yes, sir. Vrex opened his eyes again. He pulled up the security roster. 5 guards were currently on duty nearby. 5. That seemed reasonable for 1 human female, right? The manual said humans were fragile, soft, easy to restrain. Unfortunately, the manual also said humans were creative problem solvers with an alarming disregard for personal safety. But Vrex chose to focus on the fragile part. Assemble Team 3, he said, standing up. Full restraint gear. We bring her in for questioning before she accidentally destroys the entire station with her efficiency. Thrall saluted and hurried out of the room. Vrex grabbed his shock baton. For a moment, he wondered if it was too late to request a transfer to literally anywhere else in the galaxy. The 5-guard team moved through the corridor like they were approaching a live explosive device. which, based on everything they had heard about humans, might actually have been safer. Officer Thrall walked to the front. Behind him were guards Norvik, Plex, Jason, and Kodo. Each one looked slightly more nervous than the one before. "Remember," Thrall whispered, "humans respond poorly to aggressive behavior. The manual says we must appear firm but non-threatening. The manual also says they can lift 7 times their body weight when frightened." Norvik added helpfully, something about adrenaline. "That is not helping," Plex hissed. Kodo checked his scanner. "She is definitely still inside Engineering Bay 12. He frowned at the readings. "Energy activity is strange, though." "Define strange," Thrall said. "Like she is either performing complex calculations," Kodo paused, "or making lunch." Jason chuckled quietly. "Maybe both. I saw a human in the cafeteria last week eating something called a sandwich while arguing about quantum mechanics with 3 people at the same time. They're terrible at focusing on just one thing." They turned the corner. Engineering Bay 12 stood ahead of them. Through the transparent door panels, they could see flashes of light. Movement. Steam rising into the air. Norvik squinted. "Is that normal?" "Nothing about this is normal," Thrall replied. Commander Vrex stepped forward. He straightened his uniform, activated his compresence badge, and prepared to sound authoritative. "All right," he said. "We enter quickly. We announce the violations clearly. We restrain the suspect if necessary and escort her to holding. Simple. Professional." Kodo raised his weapon slightly. "Sir, should we set weapons to stun?" Vrex thought for a moment. "Just for show," he decided. "The last thing we need is an intergalactic incident because we accidentally stunned a human engineer." He took a breath, pressed the door control. The engineering bay doors slid open with a cheerful hiss. The security team rushed inside, weapons raised, ready for anything, absolutely anything, except what they actually found. Commander Vrex opened his mouth. "Human citizen, you are under arrest for unauthorized modifications to..." He stopped speaking because the human was smiling at them. Not a nervous smile, not a guilty smile, just a friendly one. "Hey guys," the human said happily. Perfect timing. She turned away from a workbench covered with tools, wires, and several devices that definitely did not belong in an engineering bay. "I just made a fresh pot. Want some coffee?" The entire security team froze. Commander Vrex blinked all 3 eyes independently. His brain could not coordinate them properly. "Did she just..." Norvik whispered. "Offer us coffee?" Plex finished. The human was already pouring dark, steaming liquid into several cups. "Fair warning, though," she said cheerfully. "Station water tastes like recycled sadness. But I'm working on fixing that, too." She held up a mug toward them. "Coffee?" Commander Vrex felt something inside his brain slowly break. "We're not here for beverages," he said. "You are in violation of Galactic Station regulation." Yeah, I know," the human interrupted. "But before you arrest me..." She pulled up a glowing holographic display. "Can I show you something really cool?" The guards hesitated. Vrex opened his mouth to stop her, but the human was already zooming into a power grid schematic. "You see this junction?" she said excitedly. "Your whole life support system was running at 62% efficiency." The guards looked at the hologram, then at each other. The human continued talking rapidly, which means 38% of your power was just disappearing into nothing. She took a sip of coffee. "Honestly, whoever designed this system should be arrested too." Norvik leaned closer to the display. "Wait, that junction feeds all of Section 7. "Exactly," the human said. "That thing was choking harder than I did the first time I tried Vorgin spice noodles." "I am Vorgin," Jason said quietly. "The spice level was attempted murder," the human replied. Then she pointed to a new set of lines on the hologram. "So, I rerouted the secondary conduits through and used thermal exchange channels." She looked up proudly. "And now your power grid runs at 94% efficiency." Commander Vrex felt a headache forming. "You bypassed for safety protocols." "Outdated ones," she replied casually. "I upgraded those too." The guards slowly formed a semicircle around the hologram, watching, listening, drinking coffee. Commander Vrex stared in horror. Everyone stopped drinking the coffee. 3 guards froze mid-sip. The human looked offended. "Hey, the coffee didn't do anything wrong." Commander Rex took a deep breath. You are under arrest. Okay, the human said. That's fair. Then she turned toward a control panel. But before that, let me just show you the power readings. No demonstrations, Rex said quickly. Step away from the panel. It'll only take 30 seconds, she said. She pressed a button. The entire room hummed. Not a gentle hum, the deep vibration that rattled through their bones. The air tasted like metal. Lights flickered. The holographic display exploded with activity. Bright orange warnings appeared across the screen. The human frowned. Commander Rex felt dread crawl up his spine. What do you mean, The human stared at the panel. Okay, she said slowly. That wasn't supposed to happen. The power readings began to surge. Junction points glowed white. Alarms started screaming across the station. And every guard in the room suddenly realized something terrifying. They had come here to arrest a human engineer, but now they might be watching her accidentally blow up half the station. For a moment, no one in the chamber moved. The alien commander stared at the human, not with anger, not even with fear, but with something far worse, confusion. Commander Virex slowly stepped forward, his tall, armored frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. You expect us to believe, he said slowly, that a single species survived a world like that? The human officer didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked up at the enormous holographic projection floating above the chamber. Earth rotated slowly in blue and white, beautiful, fragile-looking, and yet every alien in the room now knew that appearance was a lie. Finally, the human spoke. We didn't just survive it, he said quietly. We adapted to it. Another alien commander leaned forward. But why? She asked. If your world was so hostile, why did your species not abandon it? The human's lips curled into a faint smile. Because it made us stronger. He gestured toward the hologram. Everything that tried to kill us taught us something. Storms, disease, predators, war. Every disaster had forced humanity to change. Evolve, become more dangerous. And the aliens were only beginning to understand what that meant. The human tapped the console again. The hologram changed. Now the room filled with images of human history. Volcanoes erupting, cities destroyed by earthquakes, pandemics sweeping across continents, world wars that consumed millions of lives. Gasps rippled through the alien commanders. Your species did this to itself? One of them whispered. The human nodded. Many times. Commander Virex stared at the images in disbelief. Then your species should have gone extinct. The human shrugged slightly. Probably. But we didn't. Another image appeared. Human spacecraft launching into the sky. Then another. Then another. Soon the hologram was filled with ships spreading across space like sparks from a fire. Every time something tried to destroy us, the human continued, we became harder to kill. Silence filled the chamber again. Finally, one of the younger alien commanders spoke. If that is true, then why are you here? Why join the Galactic Council? The human's eyes slowly moved across the room, meeting every alien gaze. We came because we were curious. He paused, but also because we were warned. A ripple of tension moved through the chamber. Warned? Virex asked. The human nodded. Your council sent probes to our system long before we reached the stars. Every alien froze. That information had been classified. How do you know that? One of them demanded. The human smiled again. Because we found them. A quiet shock passed through the chamber. The human continued calmly. You were studying us. Testing us. Watching to see if we would survive our own world. Virex felt a cold weight settle in his chest. And we did survive, the human said. The hologram changed again. Now it showed something else, a long list of alien species. Many of them had already been marked extinct. The room grew colder. You see, the human continued softly, we discovered something while studying your probes. Commander Virex felt a growing sense of dread. What did you discover? The human looked directly at him. That the galaxy is not kind to weak civilizations. Another hologram appeared at the map of the galaxy. Several red zones blinked ominously. Predators exist out here too. Species that wipe out young civilizations before they can grow. Whispers spread across the alien commanders. The human's voice remained calm. That's why you were watching us. To see if we were strong enough to survive. Virex slowly realized the truth. Yes, he admitted quietly. That was the purpose of the observation program. The human nodded. And we passed your test. The alien commanders looked uneasy. Then why show us all this? One asked. The human leaned forward slightly. His voice lowered. Because we didn't just survive. The hologram changed one final time. Alien fleets appeared across the galaxy. Then something else appeared behind them. Human ships, thousands of them, silent, hidden, watching. Gasps erupted around the chamber. Commander Virex stared in disbelief. These fleets, they're already deployed? The human nodded. We've been exploring quietly for a while. The alien commanders realized something terrifying. Humanity had already spread across nearby sectors. Without anyone noticing, the human stood. We learned from your probes, from your technology, from your mistakes. He looked around the chamber one last time. We know the dangers out here, and we're ready for them. Commander Virex felt something he had never felt before. Respect and fear. The human gave a small nod. We joined the council because cooperation is easier than war. A pause, but make no mistake. His eyes hardened. If something out there threatens our species, the hologram showed human fleets activating weapon systems. We will survive that too. Silence filled the chamber. Finally, Commander Virex spoke quietly. I believe you. The human turned to leave, but before he reached the door, he stopped. One more thing, he said. The alien commanders waited. The human glanced back over his shoulder. That test you ran on humanity? He smiled. You might want to stop doing that to other species. Because the next one, his voice dropped to a whisper, might not be as friendly as we are. And with that, the human walked out of the chamber, leaving the Galactic Council staring at the truth they had finally understood. Humanity was never the experiment. Humanity was the result, and the galaxy had just realized what it had created.